Day, the Trailblazers are in a much sunnier and warmer place than here. They're in the Valley getting ready to take on the Phoenix Suns. Tip-off is coming up at 6. Game day will ride from now up until 5 o'clock when Curtis Long will take over for your Trailblazer pregame show. So we have an extra half hour of Blazer Game Day today. So here's the plan. I've got a lot of different things we're going to get to. We'll hear from Chauncey Billups. We'll hear from Jabari Walker. We'll give you what's the scoot. We have an update on Scoot Henderson, which is terrific. We got an injury update. We're also going to give you the Coors Light Cold Hard Facts, a scoreboard report to let you know what's going on around the NBA. And later in the show, we'll have our keys to the game. Also today will be our monthly visit from Colin Amos from Goldberg Jones, 1-800-DIVORCE. He's going to join me in studio to answer your questions. That's coming up at 4 o'clock. So that's kind of the plan today. Tip-off with the Blazers and Suns at 6 o'clock. And this is the first of a back-to-back. Portland getting busy right now. They got a game tonight in Phoenix against the Suns. And then they travel back home to host the Utah Jazz tomorrow. And then they'll get the rest of the week off before they play a game on Sunday. So that's kind of the schedule. Back-to-back games. They'll get a few days off and play a game on Sunday as we're entering into a very busy sports week with NFL games on Thursday and Friday. We've got rivalry week in college football. The playoff rankings will be released today. The Civil War is coming up on Friday. And we've got championship games in high school. So it's a great sports week and a lot of different things going on, and we're here to enjoy and sharing that with you. So if you want to hit me up and be a part of the show, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. One other thing, this is actually good for all of you. Today is Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday, so we have not one but two pairs of tickets that we will give away between now and 5 o'clock for your chance to go to the Utah game tomorrow. So if you want to go to a Blazer game, maybe you're one of those individuals who's not real hip on family time right around Thanksgiving. Well, now I'm giving you the out, a chance to get out of the house and go watch some NBA basketball and check out this young Blazer squad continuing to battle and try to find ways to win games. And you can pay attention to the, what do I call it, the incremental growth and all the different things that are going on. So we'll give away two pairs. Also, we have one other goodie to give away, a third item for you, a pair of tickets for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which is going to be in town this weekend. So we have two pairs of Blazer tickets to unload to you. Also a pair of tickets for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra that will be at Moda Center this weekend. So we got a lot of good things. First off, I'll start the show with this, a quick injury update for your Portland Trailblazers. Malcolm Brogdon has been upgraded to questionable for tonight's game against the Suns. I do not have the latest on whether or not he's going to play, but this is a good sign. He's got the hamstring strain. So, you know, he's been out for a few games. They obviously need him because this team is shorthanded right now. So we'll see if he's going to play tonight, but we do know one thing. He is close to a return, and that's a very good thing. Scoot Henderson is out with the bone bruise. He has been assigned to the Rip City Remix for conditioning for his eventual return to the Portland Trailblazers. So he's nearing a return, and the Blazers will get a much-needed shot in the arm because right now you've got your third-string point guard in Skylar Mays playing big minutes, and he's doing a good job, but this team needs help in so many different areas, especially on the offensive end. So Brogdon is close, upgraded to questionable, and Scoot Henderson, the prized rookie, has been assigned to the Rip City Remix. I'll have more on him next segment in What's the Scoot. And I think right now with the Blazers, look, you have to understand this. Lack of talent, lack of star power, lack of offense, those are the biggest issues with this team and why they're not winning basketball games. They've lost 7 straight. It's not the coaching. It's not the effort. It's lack of viable NBA talent. And that's not an excuse. That's just a fact. You can play hard. You can work your tail off. You can go out there and compete every night. But if you don't have the players, you're just going to be up against it. Like tonight, they're going to be down in Phoenix playing the Suns. They've got Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, two of the best offensive stars in all of basketball. The Blazers, how are they going to compete with that and that type of firepower? It's going to be tough. Because the Blazers right now are dead last in offense, dead last in three-point shooting. So you're going to need guys to step up to make shots. My point is that when you lack the type of talent that they do right now with guys who aren't in the lineup. And even if everyone was healthy, they would still lack firepower. It's going to be tough to compete. So just keep that in mind as you're watching the games. And we'll see if the Blazers have more energy tonight than what we saw in that game Sunday against Oklahoma City when they got destroyed by 40 plus. I think what you saw in that game, too, is that because of the injuries, you have guys who are playing large minutes. And as a result, they're experiencing fatigue, and that's a big problem. And the Thunder were able to shoot 60% from the floor and 60% from downtown. They were on fire in that game on Sunday. And I think part of the problem was the lack of intensity, the lack of attention to detail, the lack of fight defensively. The Blazers did not play well, but I think a lot of that was from fatigue because you battle. You're being asked to do so much from the coaches because they know in order to compete or keep games close and be in a position to win, they've got to work overtime with the hustle points, the rebounding. They've got to fight, scratch, and claw. And when you're doing that with a short roster and guys playing big minutes, especially some of the younger players, eventually you're going to hit a wall. And I think that's what happened to Portland. And so hopefully after a day off and getting a chance to refresh, they will be able to play better tonight or at least play with more intensity tonight, more fight. Obviously a second of a back-to-back tomorrow, but then they'll get some much-needed rest with Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days off before they'll play their next game on Sunday. So a bit of a breather in the schedule, which I think is going to be very helpful. Now, in regards to that game on Sunday against Oklahoma City where they get destroyed 134-91, the Oklahoma City Thunder had their way. They started out the game on an 11-2 run and never looked back. They led by as many as 47 points in that game. So the Blazers got thrashed by one of the hottest teams in all of basketball. And Billups, after the game, talked about the effort. Let's take a listen.
One time at all this year talked about effort for our team. Honestly, I'm not going to start tonight. I didn't think we had a night where we didn't compete. I just thought their shot making really deflated us, man. I mean, I came in at halftime. I thought they made 23s at the half. I felt that the shots were so loud, and then the layups, that they got. I thought it just kind of had us spinning. We was just kind of spinning the whole time. You got to give them credit. They play a very simple game, and it's just very effective. They built their team very nicely with all the shooting, around Shea, and they beat us in every which way that you could in this game.
Yeah, when he mentions every which way, in that game, 134 points for the Thunder. They connected on 60.5% of their field goals. They were 22 of 36 from downtown, good for 61%. And they were 14 of 14 at the foul line. And then on top of that, the Blazers making too many mistakes. Again, 19 turnovers, which led to 29 points for the Thunder. The Thunder had an edge in fast break points. They were on point. They were executing extremely well. And the Blazers were never in position to attack or fight or have a chance to win that game. That was domination from start until finish. And Oklahoma City looked like a well-oiled machine. The other thing that Billups talked about, and this is one of the things that I think is really important to him, and that's physicality or his team playing with physicality. Here's what he had to say about that.
No, I don't. I didn't feel that we played with physicality tonight. I think that's why, when I talk about lack of focus and attention to detail, that's one of the things that we wanted to do. I mean, I called my first time out, and I looked at all my guys and said, who played last night? They had an overtime game away, and they're fresher than we are. They're playing with more intention than we are, and that was disappointing. That we don't. You got to jump on teams like that. Let them know this. To win this game, it's going to be really tough. Coming off of overtime, emotional win that they got last night. You knew their confidence would be high, but it's still back-to-back. While we've been sitting here waiting. So I've always felt this way. You can lose a game very early on in the game. And today I thought we lost the game in the first quarter.
Wow. It's not too often you hear a coach say that he thinks his team lost the game in the first quarter. That's how bad it was on Sunday. My thought is with the lack of physicality, I think it was fatigue. They've been playing a lot of games. You've had a lot of guys playing big minutes, and I think they just ran out of gas. And Oklahoma City's the wrong team to run out of gas against because they've got so many different guys who can attack you in so many different ways. And they made it look easy. A couple other items from Chauncey Billups. He talked about attention to detail. So physicality, effort, attention to detail, three of the big items for the Trailblazers right now as they play with a young team. And I mean, they've got to do a lot of things right to be in a position to compete.
Our attention to detail was off a little bit even from the start of the game. They got off to, kind of an early start. I thought the turnovers in the first half really hurt us. We had 10 for 17 points at the half. Those layups, I mean, when you got numbers, obviously, you get 3-on-2s, 3-on-1s, obviously you're going to get a layup in that, but it's the half-court defense you set, and then we just don't communicate on the switches. Or we change coverages, change defenses now. We're playing our 5 down, and we veer because it's Chet. We end up not veering, and we double the ball. Now they just kind of had us going. Lack of communication, lack of focus a lot of times.
All right, so what you're looking at right now, especially with the guys out, I'm talking about Brogdon, Scoot, and Ant, three of their key players. What the Blazers are going to have to do in order to have a chance to win some games, to give Blazer fans something to smile about on occasion, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of wins this year. In fact, I projected 25 to 30 wins. I may be off on my projection. It may go below that. It's going to be a rough year in terms of wins and losses. But in order to do that, they've got to have attention to detail. And I would define that in terms of communication, knowing where you need to be, rebounding as a team, focusing on ball security. These are all the little things that they have to do in order to win those battles, to have a chance to compete against these other teams with, big-time firepower. After that, the attention to detail, you're looking at effort and physicality. They've just got to be willing to work harder than these other teams that come in with more talent. Most teams in the NBA, they go through cycles. They'll have a couple of weeks where they're locked in. They'll have a couple of weeks where they, maybe take their foot off the gas a bit. Teams try to pace themselves because it's a long NBA schedule, and the contenders know that you don't want to be gassed and beat up when the playoffs start. So teams kind of pick and choose when they want to crank it up a little bit, and that's understandable. So the Blazers have to take advantage of those spots where they're just willing to outwork and chase down the loose balls, get up in guys' grills, contest, and do all these little things. And when they do that, on some nights, they'll have a chance to compete and win some games. Now, I've said it before, and I know a lot of Blazer fans get irritated because they're tired of the losing or the tanking or whatever, and I totally understand that. But I'm just being real with you. I'm not going to get upset or angry with this team losing games right now as long as I'm seeing, progress in the right direction. Sunday was a downer because they just got thumped and showed no life, but I think that was a result of fatigue, as I mentioned. So I'm just focused on development, even if it's the most, little of change or incremental growth or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to try and celebrate those moments because this team is in a full rebuild. I mean, they are just ripping it down, and they're going to build it back up from the foundation. So they're starting at the very bottom, and they're going to go from there. And we're in the very beginning stages of that. So this is not something that's going to happen overnight, and it's going to be long, and there's going to be some rough stretches like what we're seeing right now with 7 straight losses. But the losses don't matter. In fact, they're actually good because you want this team to have the best possible draft picks that they can have with their own picks. So picking at the top of the draft, having access to better talent, those are good things. So I don't care about the losses. Those are going to happen naturally with this team. We do want to see development, whether it's Tamani Kamara or it's Scoot Henderson or it's Shaden Sharp or it's guys understanding what the coaches are having them do. You've got to pay attention to that so that it will help ease some of the frustration you may have watching this team play. That's really what it comes down to. And when you go to games, go to enjoy the experience and watch the youngsters and see what type of growth you see. And they're going to have some stretches this year where they'll string together a couple of wins and they'll show signs of life. And then they're going to hit another wall and a couple of hard spots. I mean, it's one thing for this team to battle with all their players, but when they're shorthanded and they're missing a couple of key guys, that's going to be even more challenging as we're seeing right now. So that's kind of where we're at. The Blazers are in a full rebuild. This is going to take a longer period of time than what most fans care to think about. Patience is not something any of us care about. Who wants to be patient? I don't. I want things right now. I want things to happen overnight. I want immediate gratification just like anybody else. But in order to win in the NBA, sometimes you got to hit rock bottom. I think the Blazers are there, and they're starting the process of rebuilding. I would say the two most important players right now are Scoot and Shaden. If those guys can develop and become stars, it's going to make this transition that they're going through right now with this full rebuild much easier. So just some things to think about. Okay, we'll come back and we'll give you a full update in What's the Scoot with Scoot Henderson, who's been assigned to the Rip City Remix. I'll tell you what to expect there. Blazers and Suns are coming up at 6 o'clock tonight. I've got 2 pairs of tickets for your Portland Trailblazers and Utah Jazz tomorrow. And I've got a pair of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So just listen to us for your chance to win. Chris Burkhart's here. We'll get his take when we come back as well. Here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio, and on YouTube, youtube.com. Go to our homepage, Rip City Radio 620, and you will find our live links there for all of our local shows.
The best performing team requires the best workstations. What's the Scoot is brought to you by Office Furniture Reborn. Need desks, better office chairs, or just the right file cabinet? Office Furniture Reborn has a huge selection of colors and sizes to choose from. So drop by Office Furniture Reborn's huge showroom just off Pacific Highway in 217 or visit www.officefurniturereborn.com.
All right, we'll get to What's the Scoot here in just a moment. But if you would like a pair of tickets for the Trailblazers and Jazz, we'll take caller 10 right now, 503-248-0620. Caller 10 right now, 503-248-0620. We'll get a pair of tickets courtesy of the Trailblazers and 620 Rip City Radio. Blazers and Jazz, 503-248-0620. Fire away right now. Caller 10 will get a pair of tickets for the Blazers and Jazz. 503 248-0620. Caller 10 will get a pair of tickets for the Blazers and Jazz. We have another pair to give away later in the show. We'll do that. And we still have a pair of tickets to give away for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. 503-248-0620. And you will get a pair of tickets for the Blazers and Jazz. All right, we do have a legitimate Scoot Henderson update. According to the Trailblazers, he has been assigned to the Rip City Remix for conditioning. He's dealing with the bone bruise. This would mean that he is nearing a return to the court, which is great. Now, from my understanding with this assignment to the Remix, I wouldn't expect him to play in any games with the Rip City Remix, but I do think he's going to get a ton of practice time. And that will allow him to get down there, get a lot of run, get a chance to compete, be in practice, and really just work on his conditioning after being out for a few weeks before he makes his jump back up to the NBA level. That's really what it's all about. So conditioning, getting a chance to run in practice, and before you know it, he'll be back on the floor with your Portland Trailblazers, which will be terrific. I just want to see him back on the floor so we can pay attention to his development to see what he can do. And I think that's terrific. Now, Miranda has chimed in. Dear Skunk Vomit, good afternoon, Mr. Doing. So on Wednesday, the Wednesday afternoon of Thanksgiving week, you get to go on these airwaves to amp a game between the Blazers and Jazz. Perhaps you should begin self-medicating right now. I've considered it, Miranda, especially with all the football games that are going on right now. But my job as a true professional is to go on and present the Blazer games as is and to walk us through as we move together through this beginning stages of a full rebuild. It is what it is. You know, you got to go through pain sometimes to be able to get to where you want to be. And the Blazers just ripped the Band-Aid off. They're like, all right, screw it. Rip. They ripped it off, and now they made the deal to get rid of Dame, and they are now in a position to continue to go out and bring in as many assets as possible. Draft picks, young players, you name it, and they can start this process of reshaping the entire roster. So as I've said before, don't get too attached to some of the veterans that are on the roster right now because more than likely they won't be around here long term. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm talking about all of them. Matisse Thybulle, Jeremy Grant, Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams when he's finally healthy again. The Blazers have brought in some vets who at some point down the line, other contenders in the league are going to look at and say, we need that player to go out and compete for a championship. And that's when the Blazers just offer the player up. They look at all the different packages that are being offered up in a potential deal, and you take the best one. And you try to get as many great draft picks as you can to give you access to better players that you can draft and develop and continue to shape the roster. And what you're looking at right now when the Blazers have young players, you want to pay attention to them and think, hey, is that someone that can start in the near future for this team and be a viable part of the team? That's really what you're looking for. Viable NBA players that they acquire in trades, either that they use draft picks to select in the draft or young players they bring back in deals. You know, are these guys who of that group can go out there and start and eventually develop into a viable NBA player? And that's what it's all about right now. Right now, I know they've got two, Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. Tamani Kamara might be a good find. He might be. He might be able to develop into a legit rotational player. I don't know about a starter, but he's got the signs of life in regards to his length, his athleticism, and his defense. So we'll pay attention to that. But they really do need Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe to hit. They need to cash in on both those guys, and that will make this whole process much smoother. Now, with not Malcolm Brogdon, but Scoot Henderson going down, like I said, he's been assigned to the remix. He's not going to play any games. That would be my guess. He'll practice a ton, and then we'll see him back on the floor eventually. So that's going to be good. We need him on the floor. He needs to be playing. He needs minutes. He needs to develop. We got to see what he can do, and he was just starting to turn a little tiny corner before the bone bruise happened. And I'm assuming that, or what I'm hoping is when he returns, the time away from the game where he can sit, watch, study film, that when he gets back on the floor and starts playing big minutes again, that the game hopefully will slow down for him. And then the passing lanes, the decision-making, we'll start to see him smooth out a little bit, which will be nice. So I'm excited for Scoot to get back on the floor. Elsewhere, more from Chauncey Billups following that very difficult loss to Oklahoma City. He was asked about the Blazers and whether or not they did a good job of contesting the three-point line. As I mentioned before, the Thunder, 61% from downtown on 22 of 36 shooting. That's unbelievable. Here's what Billups had to say about contesting the threes.
They did a good job of creating threes, but I really felt like a lot of those threes, we were contesting those shots. They made tough looks, and they really did. They just got it going. But there's some that they created. They get the ball to the paint. I knew that it would be a multiple effort game for us. We talked about that, and they did that. But I thought for the most part, we contested most of their shots. I mean, they made them.
Man, 22 out of 36. Difficult to win a game when a team's hitting 22 of 36 from downtown. That is smoking hot. And the Blazers, of course, 9 of 34. Good for 26.5%. As I mentioned, Portland, dead last in three-point shooting and dead last in offensive efficiency in the NBA. Those aren't good numbers. The Thunder are top 10 in efficiency and number 1 in three-point shooting right now. And that showed up on Sunday night. So just think about the numbers there. They were plus 39 at the three-point line. That is a recipe for disaster in the NBA. Also, Billups was asked about their rookie Chet Holmgren. As you remember, he got hurt, didn't play last year. This is his rookie season, so he would be eligible for Rookie of the Year. Here's what Billups had to say about what he sees in Chet.
Yeah, this is my first time ever, obviously, coaching against him. He's going to be a special player with his skill set and his size. He has a competitiveness about him that I like, too. You know, he's pretty tough out there. You know, he will make a play. He'll talk a little bit on the court. I like that. They're going to be able to move him around from the 5 to the 4 they can handle with him. I mean, you a chip like that, you can do so many things with him. He's going to be an incredible player in this league.
All right, the big question is, will I be eating crow in regards to Chet Holmgren? Right now, all signs point to yes. I thought he was going to be a bum. I thought drafting him at number 1 was insane. But right now, he's looking pretty good. And he can defend multiple spots. Obviously, he can shoot. He's freaky long. He's kind of a difficult matchup, similar to what we see with the rookie from France down in San Antonio with Wemby. Difficult matchup at his size. So we'll see. But right now, I'm impressed with what I see from Chet, much more than what I was anticipating when he was selected out of Gonzaga. So we'll see how things continue to develop. But clearly, Coach Billups very impressed with what he sees from Chet Holmgren. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. We have another pair of Trailblazer tickets to give away. We got a pair of tickets for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which will be at Moda Center this weekend. Colin Amos will join me at 4. Tip-off with the Blazers and Suns coming up at 6 here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Burkhart and I are adjusting to the midweek thermostat. On the weekends, they turned off. It's freezing booty in here, but right now it's warm, so I had to shed some clothing. Blazers game day, getting ready for the Suns and Blazers coming up at 6 o'clock.
Gonna see if that spikes our YouTube views or not.
Yeah, we'll see. Check it out. Got a pair of tickets for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, so if you want to see them, we'll take the first caller through right now, 503-248-0620. Call now, and you'll get a pair of tickets for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620. Call now for your chance to see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra at Moda Center this coming weekend. 503-248-0620. Just fire away with your calls. Chris will get your info, and you'll be dialed in for the show this weekend. Jabari Walker, who I think has been one of the impressive youngsters who's been able to come off the bench, really worked hard on his game during the offseason, playing with intensity, doing what the coaches want, making an impact when he comes in, making game-winning plays, which is nice. You know, as a second-round draft pick, that's not bad. But really busting his tail out there. I like him. And after the game, he talked about a few different topics. But first off, on really what a team can learn from a game like that against Oklahoma City, one of the hottest teams in the league, and they got shredded 134-91. What can you learn? Let's take a listen to Jabari.
Just show kind of where we're at, like as far as competition and competing. It just showed what a good offense looks like. The fluidity was crazy. It felt like every open man, they found him. I think we can learn a lot when we go back and watch film from this game.
No question. We heard Chauncey talking about Chet. I think he finished with 16 points. I think he was 6 of 6 shooting. Jabari shared his thoughts on Chet and what he sees.
Yeah, he plays like a 4-3, and he's at the 5 position, so he can guard a lot of positions. He's a rim protector. He can shoot the ball. Just very slippery, very quick. Yeah, he's just very versatile, so that's tough for whoever's on him.
All right, a couple of key things here from Jabari in regards to, working through the losing or the difficult times. He was asked, is it hard to see progress in a blowout loss? How do you do that? Well, here's what he had to say.
I think it's just we're getting better with dealing with adversity. Like, the guys show mental toughness, even on the bench. Even though we were down a bunch of points, the bench was still engaged. We were chilling. We were cheering. The vets were motivating. So just stuff like that. I don't think the reason we're losing has to do anything with our energy as far as like a group. We hang out off the court. We enjoy each other's presence. Like, this group is really close, but it's just something about on the court that we have to figure out how to click with each other. I think that just comes with time and watching film.
I think that's a pretty honest answer from the youngster, Jabari. Here's another question I have, and I think this is tough for the coaching staff, right? Because you're asking guys to play a certain way, to do certain things in order for this team to grow and get, to where you want them to be down the road. And I think what's hard as a coach is that when you're asking guys to grind and do things a certain way, but they're not getting the immediate success on the floor in terms of wins, how do you stay engaged? How do you stay invested? How do you continue to grind and work when you're not getting the immediate results, on the floor? That's tough. Tough for coaches to be able to deliver that message and demand a lot from the guys when you're not getting the immediate results. And also for players too. How do you do that? How do you stay invested? Here's what he had to say about that.
Yeah, it's just staying positive. We have a bunch of guys with a positive mindset. We have Malcolm, we have DA, we have Jeremy. Like, nobody put their head down. So it's easy for me, like, as a young guy, to just put my head down and not see the bigger picture. But they've been around for so long, so we just got to snap out of it. Like, we have another game in 2 days. It's just too many ball games to focus on one and put your head down. So having vets like that and older guys around us really helps keep our head up.
All right, so that's another good answer. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to keep guys engaged. It's tough to keep guys, grinding and working hard through the challenges, especially in the midst of a 7-game losing streak. But what I like about Jabari is, he understands exactly what the coaches want him to do. And Jabari understands how he can best help this team. And that's through hard work, through defense, through bringing energy off the bench. He's not worried about showcasing his touches. He just knows what he needs to do and focus on, and he does that. And I think young players can learn a lot from a guy like Jabari, who's embraced his role, understands what he needs to do and what the coaches want him to do. And when you go out there and work hard and put in that type of time and you're listening to the coaches, you're working hard in practice, you're going to continue to get an opportunity to play. So many guys fail to recognize their talents in terms of how they can best serve their team, and they want to focus on other things to showcase what they can do in other departments. And as a result, sometimes they'll lose favor with the coach. They will lose an opportunity with the franchise, and then they won't latch on because they don't understand how important it is to listen to the coaches, understand what you do best for that particular team, and then go out there and focus on that. And if guys would do that on a more regular basis, they would get more opportunity. Jabari Walker in that game on Sunday, he played 22 minutes, finished with 13 points, 7 rebounds, had a couple of assists, and 2 steals. I mean, that's very productive. And he got 15 shots. He was 6 of 15 from the floor, 1 of 5 from downtown. So he's got to continue to work on the offense, but, that's making the most of your opportunity. 13 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals. His energy, his attention to detail, the way he works, he can make an impact on the offensive glass. He's just one of those guys that will continue to find ways to get into games because he's working hard in practice, doing what the coaches want. And he's got a unique body. He's got length. He's got some athleticism. He can make an impact when he's out there, which is really cool. And again, the Blazers, not so much against Oklahoma City, but they are getting different guys to make contributions. They just didn't shoot the ball well. They struggled to get a lot of things done. But Tamani Kamara in that game, 14 minutes, 6 points. He was 3 of 5 from the floor, 0 of 2 from downtown. Jeremy Grant, 27 minutes, 14 points. He didn't shoot the ball well, just 4 of 12 and 1 of 5 from downtown. DeAndre Ayton, limited action, 24 minutes, 11 points, 5 boards, 2 assists. He was 5 of 7 from the floor. And Shaedon Sharpe, 24 minutes, 7 points on 3 of 8 shooting, 4 rebounds, and an assist. And Skylar Mays in 26 minutes, 11 points, 7 assists, 4 of 9 shooting, 2 of 6 from downtown. And then off the bench, it was Jabari Walker who led the way with the 13 points. So you're getting multiple guys to step up. The other thing I think will be helpful was so many of the key guys who have been playing all these, big minutes, because of the blowout nature of that game on Sunday, they're going to be a little more rested tonight. And so I'm hoping that will translate into better energy, better effort, better attack on defense, and those things should help them, hopefully be more competitive tonight. I don't expect them to get blown out by 43 tonight. But the Blazers, and I was talking about this with Chris, if you take a look at the upcoming schedule and the current injury issues the Blazers have, they're going to be up against it. They're at Phoenix tonight, back home to take on Utah tomorrow night at Moda Center, a team that they've already lost to. So that's tough. They just lost at Utah last week. Sunday, they're in Milwaukee to take on the Bucks. At the Pacers, at the Cavs, at the Jazz, at the Clippers before they come back home for Utah, Dallas, Golden State, Phoenix, and then Washington. And this is the truth of the matter right now. On that schedule for the upcoming games I just mentioned, all of those teams are better. Talent-wise, the ability to score, more star power. So, the wins are going to be tough to come by. So the question is, can they go out there and compete? Can they put themselves in a position to strike in the fourth quarter? Will they be able to sneak away with a win here or there through their effort and their attention to detail? Those are all very good questions, but that's what they're facing. Let's go out to Turkey Rich. He's got some cooking hints maybe. Let's go check this out. Rich, what's up? Welcome to the Blazers Game Day. What's going on?
Hey, Chad. How we doing, man?
Fabulous, dude. Happy Thanksgiving.
Good. Do you remember that tip that I gave you on cooking a turkey?
Well, why don't refresh my memory. What?
Well, I had told you that I made a mistake one year cooking my turkey. I cooked it upside down. And that's the best mistake that I ever made. Okay?
Yes.
And I told you about that, and you had told me that you tried it, and you said yeah, that's the most moist turkey I've ever had, especially the breast, because it's in the juice and steaming and all that. But anyway, and I was just wondering if you were doing that, and I got a little bit of Blazer talk to share with you as well.
Well, yes, your tip was terrific, and I like juicy turkey just like everybody else. This year, I'm going with a smaller version, so I'm just going to go with the turkey breast. I'm not cooking a full turkey this year, so I'm going to keep it small and simple, my friend.
Oh, I see. I see what you're doing. That's cool. That's cool. And so you're just staying home, just chilling.
Just chilling. Going to watch some football, eat a little bit of food, enjoy some time with family and my little puppy dog, and then we're going to call it a day, man. A lot of good football games.
Oh, cool. So the Blazer talk I wanted to talk about, I mean, like most of our fans are up in the air, like, what are we doing? The hands are up in the air, like, what are we doing? And no, I totally understand what we're doing. I mean, we're building a new team, and it looks like they're gelling and stuff like that. They're starting to mature and all this. But, you know, where the rubber meets the road is a stretch coming up. That's going to tell right there. Like he's 12 games in a row against quality teams. That's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. And Rich, I appreciate the call and happy Thanksgiving, my friend. Yeah, it's so early in the rebuild, but the majority of Blazer fans I talked to over the last, year or so, they were on board with this. They wanted the team to move on from Dame and start the rebuild because I think they saw that the pathway to competing with Dame was going to be difficult. So this is part of that process. Very, very early part of that process. You strip it down and you start to bring in young assets. And I don't even say I can't even tell you they're starting to gel. They're just early on. And they've had so many different combinations of lineups, and they've been hit harder by injury than just about every other team in the NBA. So I don't know. We'll see. These guys need to play together before I can say they're starting to gel. It takes time.
Oh, absolutely. Now I'm just over here laughing, though, because the YouTube chat, I said, now the world gets to see what I get to see every day, and that is your facial expressions. And as one of the commenters just said, especially when a cell phone connection starts to give out, that's when Chad's face really lets you know what's up.
Well, you know how it works in radio, that when you have a bit of a connection issue and I start to talk and then they start to talk and then it's a bad cycle and it drives me crazy. And then, the funny thing is you mentioned that is that I felt my facial expression and then right away I was like, oh, yeah, I'm on YouTube.
Gotta remember that. Like the other day when you had the ginger on, and him and Dwight were just going over each other, and you literally started the entire segment over.
Yeah, I had to start it over because those guys are complete fools. Those guys aren't new at radio. But once they start, you can't stop. It's bad. It's like the hiccups, or you start laughing and you can't stop giggling. All right, so happy Thanksgiving. We'll ask Chris later on. His family runs the Original Steer, a meat market in town. I'm sure he's got a couple of tricks on how to cook a turkey. Yes! We have another pair of Trailblazer tickets we'll give away for the Jazz game later in the show. Tip-off with the Blazers and Suns coming up at 6.
You want the truth? It's time for the Coors Light Cold Hard Facts, presented by Frost Brewed Coors Light, made to chill.
All right, time for some Coors Light Cold Hard Facts. First off, with your Portland Trail Blazers, I understand the losses are tough, and 7 straight losses is brutal. But a fact is that I have not seen enough to know whether or not Chauncey Billups is the right coach. I know a lot of you are ready to move off him, but we got to let this play out. He needs time to work with this young roster and continue to coach these guys and teach these guys, and we'll be able to make a better judgment as we get deeper into the season. And oh, by the way, the losses will continue to pile up as they go through this rebuild. Over the next couple of weeks, they're in Phoenix to meet the Suns. They play Utah, Milwaukee, Indiana, Cleveland, Utah, the LA Clippers, and then back home for the Jazz, Mavericks, Warriors, and Suns. And the bottom line is those teams all have more talent, but that's okay. It's about continuing to coach and teach the youngsters, namely Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson. And then with the veterans they have, as they continue to move in the future, turning those into draft picks and young players where they can continue to reshape this roster and build it up into the team that they envision. That's what it's going to come down to. I think also I'm putting Philadelphia in the mix in the Eastern Conference. I thought going into the year it was going to be a 2-team race with Boston and Milwaukee. And I still think those are probably the 2 best teams, and they've got the most star power. But the reality is Nick Nurse is coaching his tail off. And what we're seeing with Philadelphia now, without James Harden in the mix, they don't have any headaches. They've got guys who are bought in, and they've got a true superstar in Joel Embiid. So you take away the mess, you surround Embiid with guys that want to play and compete, and you give him a good coach that knows what the heck is going on. You've got a team that's now 10-3, just sitting there a half game behind Boston for first in the Eastern Conference. And I think a lot of times with coaches, as good as Doc Rivers is, eventually, even with great coaches, their message and their voice grows tired in the locker room, and it gives you a chance to bring in a new voice. And Nick Nurse is one of the best in the biz. And he's gotten those guys competing, and he's a defensive mind that knows what he's doing. All right, there you go. There's the Coors Light Cold Hard Facts. We'll have another pair of tickets to give away for the Jazz game later in the show. My man Colin Amos will answer your questions coming up at 4. Chris, Rich called in, and he's got his tricks of the trade when it comes to the turkey. Your family, of course, has owned the original steer for a long period of time.
Oh, yeah.
One of the best meat markets in town. I'm sure you or your dad or you guys have some secrets to the trade, but what is the key to making the proper turkey?
Well, it all just kind of depends how you like it, right? I know some people like to do the oven. I think the deep fry is the way to go, man. Just don't be stupid and just throw the thing in there and have the oil overflow. I know my grandpa used to do just a nice little slow drop in that thing, get it boiling, then turn the temp just down a little bit and just kind of let it slow cook in those juices.
Yeah.
And it came out just moist and perfect every single time.
So you think the deep fry is the way to go?
That's my personal favorite. The other one that we do that comes out really good at the market, and you can request them, is smoked. And then so we'll take it and braise it and put the juices in to get ready so it doesn't dry out, and then throw that in the smoker, and that one comes out like candy.
How long does it smoke before you bring it out?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. It's been so long, but I know it's an easy, half a day. It's in there big time. So
a lot of people will order that. That's a big fan favorite.
I think we get a fair amount, but I think more people order just the regular turkey because they prefer to cook it themselves, right? It's part of the journey, and the joy of Thanksgiving is putting the thing that you cooked on the table, not the smoked one that you just went and reheated.
That's a good point. That's a good point. What's the biggest mistake people make?
I think the biggest mistake is not giving that turkey enough time to thaw out if you got a frozen one. Secondarily, I think is probably setting the oven temps a little too high, thinking, okay, I'm low on time here, so I'm gonna boost up the temperature. That's gonna cut off a little bit of the time in there. Like, no, sometimes patience is key here. If you just scorch that thing super quick, yeah, you're gonna get dry turkey at the end of the day.
See, we have a connection now. When it comes to a full rebuild from the ground up on an NBA team, it requires some patience. You can't rush the process, right?
Yeah.
Same thing goes with Thanksgiving. If you're running behind, you're short on time, you didn't plan out the way that you should have, you don't give it proper thawing time, you don't do all the preparations, then boom, you're going to wind up with a dry turkey.
Yeah. Now, my mom figured out one for the prime rib people out there where she boosts it up to like 500 degrees for like 20 minutes so it's kind of scorches the outside and then brings the temp all the way back down and cooks it for another 5 hours, and the inside cooks. And that one that one locks everything in. That's a fun one. She's like, I'm going to try it. Someone recommended it. Let's just see. Because that's the perk of owning the market. You can just experiment with a prime rib. Like, if something goes wrong, I know where to get another one, right? It came out pretty good.
So you guys going to get together as one big family for Thanksgiving? Or is this going to be the whole deal?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. See, it's helpful to have a meat market master here at the station because you guys know things.
Yeah.
Your dad knows a lot.
Yeah.
And what is your dad's actual last name?
His last name's Butcher. No one believes me.
I don't believe you. I cannot believe that a guy that owns a meat market has a legitimate last name of Butcher, but I like it.
I'm not lying. You two got to meet up one day.
Gosh, that's amazing. And he did say, too, it's still a standing offer, right? He'll get me into the meat cooler where I can punch meat like
He'll
Rocky.
get you into the cooler and let you live your Rocky fantasies.
All right. I'm going to hold him to that. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. When we come back, my man Colin Amos from Goldberg Jones, 1-800-DIVORCE is in studio, and he's going to answer your questions. We'll talk some football. He is a dog fan, and he is jacked up right now because they're coming off the win over the Beavs, and we got the eventual matchup in the Pac-12 title game with Oregon and Washington. So it's going to be a round 2 with those two squads, which is going to be great. So Colin Amos is up next. We still have another pair of tickets for the Trailblazers to give away. We'll do that coming up before the end of the show. Tip-off with the Blazers and Suns coming up at 6 here on 620 Rip City Radio.
The Lexus December to Remember sales event has arrived at Cooney Lexus of Portland. Come spoil yourself or a loved one this holiday season with some of the best discounts and deals on Lexus vehicles. And when you're shopping for a luxury vehicle, you deserve a luxury shopping experience. Introducing the newly remodeled Lexus of Portland, located at 8840 Southwest Canyon Road. The sleek, modern, state-of-the-art facility at Lexus of Portland has over 400 vehicles to choose from, with expert staff to guide you to the car of your dreams. Lexus of Portland, driving what's right.
Shop Bi-Mart's best savings of the year. Black Friday pricing going on now. All Maybelline cosmetics are 50% off. Save $4 on all Pine Creek throws, now just $1.99. Save $30 on Yoli 3-piece gravity loungers and table sets. Plus find Hot Wheels for 89 cents. Black Friday savings are going on now at Buy Mart, your Northwest employee-owned membership store.
All right. Very happy to welcome in studio once again my good friend from the law offices of Goldberg Jones, 1-800-DIVORCE, Divorce for Men. He's a big-time dog. It's Colin Amos who's back, and he's going to answer your questions here in a moment. It's good to see you, buddy. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. It's good to be here.
Now, you're a man that enjoys the finer things in life, and especially good food. What did you think about Chris's recommendations for the turkey? What do you guys do? What's your plan of action?
We just do it traditional.
Yeah.
I would love to do a deep fried. I've heard so many guys who have burnt down their garage that I'm afraid. I'm just purely afraid. Something's going to boil over. You got grease all over. It's going to light on fire. I'm going to burn something down. But it sounds awesome. And the prime rib, I'm doing that this year because I love prime rib, and we do that for Christmas. We don't do it so much for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
For Christmas, I'm going to turn that oven up 20 minutes. I have taken notes. We're going to have a good prime rib. Oh, yeah.
I love that. See, you're self-aware like I am. There's certain things where I'm like, that sounds like a good idea, but if I do it, it's going to end up in a disaster.
It is. It will be a disaster. So let's just put it in the oven. But I like the ideas. Slow cooking, a long day.
All right, props to you for your team, the Huskies, going into Corvallis and getting the win. I thought Oregon State would win because I thought they were going to dominate the ground game, which they did. I thought they would dominate time of possession, which they did. They held Washington scoreless in the second half, and they held Penix to 162 yards and only 22 points, and Washington still won the game.
Exactly. I can't, it's
How
great.
tough are they? Jeez.
They are a tough team. They pull it out. They've done this the whole season, it seems. I mean, they came on strong in their first 4 or 5 games, and then they just find ways to win, and then they find ways almost to lose, whichever way you want to say it. But they've held on. You and everybody else thought they were not going to pull that game out. I mean, the odds were against them. They were up to they were plus 2.5.
Yeah.
At game time, it came down to 2, 1. Never favored. I put my money on it, and thank God it pulled out. I couldn't bet against them, right?
No, you had to
bet
go with
against them.
But, that's great.
Yeah, it was good.
All right, so what I really want to know as a Husky fan, and you're a guy that loves the Huskies, I want to know this because I've talked to a few Husky guys, like the thought of rematching against Oregon. How concerned are you about a potential rematch in the Pac-12 title game with Oregon, if you're being honest?
Very, very concerned. I just can't. I mean, Oregon is operating at a whole nother level. I mean, sure, Penix is phenomenal. He's the best quarterback. I think he's much better than Bo Nix. We just don't have the running game that Oregon has.
Yeah.
And so it can make Bo Nix look so much better when, he can keep that running game, put them on their back heels, and then hit some balls downfield. But Penix is doing it. He's like, which nipple do you get to? And and then you got Adunze, and now you got McMillan back. You got Polk. You got these receivers that are incredible. But you still have to make those passes. In the rain, down in Corvallis, I mean, he was hitting the ball. I mean, there was drop balls even. He was hitting the receivers, and they were still dropping the balls. So I am really nervous about that game. We have 2 suites. All of my buddies are going down there. We got 2 full suites, and 25 guys are going down for that game.
In Vegas.
In Vegas.
Oh, dude, yes.
I'm not. I can't go. I'm out of the state. I know.
That is brutal.
But I will be in front of a TV. But yeah, they got their tickets. They're going. But I'm really nervous.
Now, how did you miss out on a trip like that?
I'm going to another
great place.
Another great place. Okay. Yeah. But the buddy I'm going with is a Duck fan. So the first thing he says, "Hey, we need to talk to our wives." First thing we're going to land, because we land in in Hawaii, of all places, at 1:00. And we have 2 hours to get to that TV. We're not stopping at the store, maybe to get alcohol, and we're going right to the TV, right to the check-in, and we're going to sit there, and we gotta band together so our wives can't give us a hard time being in Hawaii and going right to the TV.
Yeah, you got to be selective on when you band together to go against the wives. But I think this is an acceptable situation. Like, look, we haven't got time to jack around. We got to get in front of the TV. We can't miss a moment of that game.
That's right, and I know a good divorce attorney. So if she doesn't like it, we're going in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
1-800-DIVORCE.
That's
I know
right.
the phone number. Well,
That's
that's
right.
great.
I got it memorized.
So, all right. So, in terms of wagering, then this weekend, so you're going to go special teaser, but you love the Ducks to win. You love the Huskies to win. Alabama to beat Auburn.
Yeah, Auburn just really it was fun to watch Auburn get beat to crap by New Mexico State, and that Diego quarterback. He is fun to watch. But yeah, that was a mess for Auburn, and I can't see them. Their head must be in a different space. Coming in now, they have to host Alabama, so I think Alabama's going to roll as they usually do. I don't think the Huskies are going to beat the spread, though. The spread started at 17, and neither does the pros, because it started 17, now it's 16.5, now it's 15, 15.5. So it's coming down. But I do think they'll win the game, but I don't think they'll beat that spread. I think Oregon will beat that spread. They're at another level.
Yep, they're really tough. In fact, I think for both Kalen DeBoer and for Dan Lanning, the last thing you want to do is lose to your rival and prevent yourself from getting into the playoff.
Yeah.
That would be a disaster
Everybody's
for either
motivated.
coach.
That is absolutely right. But yeah, they also get them at home. It was not easy for the Dogs to go in rainy conditions, being a passing team, going down to Corvallis. It's a messy place to play.
Well, you made a good point. I had forgotten this until I was checking the forecast earlier today. But the weather between now, which is nice, through the weekend, it's supposed to be clear and dry conditions, which is great for Penix.
Yeah, perfect.
But they showed his hands on the broadcast. No wonder he can throw a wet football. His hand basically goes around the entire ball. It's like
he doesn't look that big in that, but then you look at that stuff and it's amazing.
I've noticed that with athletes. When you see him on TV, you're like, oh, that's just a normal guy, and then you see him and then you standing next to someone like that, and you're like, oh, that's a different sized human being.
Yeah, they're special. I was at a Super Bowl and I was in Arizona. I was at a bar, and this guy is 6'7", comes out huge, and I said, what team do you play for? He goes, I play for the Packers, and I go, what position? He goes, tight end. I go, what's your name? He says, you won't know me. I'm third string. And I was like, you are third string. You are a massive human being. And yep, just third string, just
a normal tight end who's a massive.
Yeah.
In fact, it's funny you mention that because my buddy Steve, who lives down in Vegas, he was in a shuttle with a gentleman last week, and he goes, dude, this guy got on, sat down next to me, and he goes, I just couldn't believe how massive he was. So I had to ask him, like, what sport do you play? And sure enough, he was a tight end that played at Wyoming. And he just happened to be down in Vegas because Wyoming was playing down there against UNLV. And he played with Josh Allen at Wyoming.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, he goes, you wouldn't believe, he goes, the size of his wrists, the size of his thighs, the size of his neck, like just every aspect of his body was on a different level. He goes, I just haven't seen a human being like that in person very often.
Yeah, I don't know how those guys aren't. Everybody's not starting, but they're unique specimens. I'm definitely not a football player.
All right. Well, Colin Amos is here. Goldberg Jones is the office, and the telephone number is 1-800-DIVORCE. So if you're facing a divorce or custody issue, call 1-800-DIVORCE. Colin is the one that will answer your call, and if he doesn't answer, he'll get back to you and have whatever questions you have, he'll answer it at no charge and point you in the right direction. So here are the questions we got that came in for you, Colin. It says here, my wife and I have agreed to divorce, and I am out of the house and in my own apartment now. The problem is she won't hand over my belongings. What are my options? I'm sure you've heard this before.
Every day. And this is a tough one because you just want your stuff.
Like clothes,
you separate, your
personal
computer,
belongings.
maybe some tools, your belongings, some things that are just really personal that the other side just doesn't care about, but they are holding it because they're angry or upset. Yeah. This is for guys out there especially. It works both ways, but mainly for guys on this one. When you get frustrated, let's say you separate, you just want to get back in, or you have this argument, you go someplace else, and she's not being as cooperative as they should be. No, you can't have your stuff. No, you can't have your computer. No, you can't have your underwear. And you just want to get it. A lot of guys go over there and pound it on the door. Definitely don't have any alcohol. And you go pounding on the door. And they're upset, understandably. That leads to potential restraining orders and things like that. So just keep your calm.
So that's not the way to go about it.
That is not the way to go. Unfortunately, the way is we file the divorce, and it opens up a constructive way by which we can resolve. Resolve these issues. We can have a communication with the wife or the husband and the attorney and say, hey, let's start working through so we can get to these items, start separating things, stop being spiteful, because we'll bring it up in court later how the other party was not reasonable in their negotiations, but there's no immediate thing you can do. So it is frustrating when you have those circumstances.
So the best thing to do if the other party will not give you your personal belongings, take a breath, show some patience, start the process, and eventually you'll be able to get access to all of your personal belongings.
Yeah, go to Costco, buy some more underwear and some new clothes, and then take a deep breath. Yes, because, again, a lot of cases start with a restraining order over conflict when you're walking out the door, essentially.
That's pretty funny. And that's exactly what my dad would do. He would be like, wait a second. I love Kirkland. I'll just go. They got everything I need right there.
Everything, and it's cheap. There you go.
All right, next question. Colin, how is a house divided up in a divorce when you are still paying a mortgage?
Yeah, these days, it's a little more frustrating these days because the interest rates have come up. But there's really three ways we handle a house. If you have a house in a divorce, either you can get it and buy the other person out of whatever equity exists, assuming it's a joint asset. They can get it, buy you out, or you sell it. And it takes us time to figure out that. If you want to keep the house, then first thing we have to do is get it valued, have it appraised. If we're being cooperative with the other side, we can either agree to value or just have it appraised and stipulate to an appraiser so we're not fighting over my expert says this, yours says that. And figure out what the mortgage balance is and then figure out that equity, and you can buy the person out of that equity. The other aspect is not just buying them out. And you can't assume mortgages. I mean, there's very few that you can. And right now, in order to buy the other person out, you have to refinance, which when you have a 3% interest rate and now you have to refinance the other person off that mortgage, moving to a 6.5% or 7% interest rate is really painful. But you got to release the other person with their credit. I mean, they have to move on with life too. So that's a consequence of wanting the house. You have to buy the other person out of their half the equity, and you have to refinance and get them off the mortgage. So it's painful.
All right, so that's something that you deal with all the time.
That's a standard issue. So we work people through that one. That shouldn't be too much conflict or difficulty and a lot of attorney's fees to figure out. We usually just work them through that.
All right, Colin Amos is here in studio answering your questions. Next one that came in. Hey, Colin, how have things changed over the years in Oregon with child custody and how courts view fathers?
This is great. They've really progressed. It used to be 10 years ago, you could be the best father ever. You could have the most flexible schedule. You could be right next to the school, and you got every other weekend, one evening a week, alternate all the holidays and blocks of time in the summer.
Yeah.
And because the court was very concerned, having feedback from experts that says back and forth Monday through Friday, that's disruptive for the children. They need stability and structure. So it wasn't saying that fathers shouldn't be involved. They just felt that structure for the kids was better. Nowadays, especially post-COVID, there's flexible work schedules. People working from home. They can provide more day-to-day involvement with the kids. So the courts have really moved towards shared parenting plans. Maybe you can have a Thursday to Monday morning. So you're picking them up from school. You're dropping them off at school. You can be more involved. So there's a lot more shared arrangements, and the courts are very open to that. Presumption of more towards equal parenting time, although they haven't quite progressed to that being the presumption. But they do certainly see the value, and there's no negatives to the midweek parenting time that there used to be. So that's great for fathers and mothers. I mean, the mothers that work and are not the primary care parent.
This is great, and I'm sure you're spreading this message all the time, but guys need to hear this, right? The courts are not against you.
Right. And they feel like that. Guys, get the short end of the stick, or it's a mother's state. And I tell them, no, you got to advocate for your position. They're not just they're just a referee effectively, and if you don't advocate your position, point out why you could be more involved, what your work schedule is, your flexibility, then they're not going to know. So don't just give up because you think that.
Yeah.
They'll support you if you come in there with a good argument and you want to be involved.
And I think even you pointed out that even if you aren't the greatest father in the world, that the courts still want the kids to have time with their fathers.
That's right. You're not divorcing your kids. You're just divorcing your wife.
Yes.
And so if you keep that in mind that, hey, the courts want you to be involved, more importantly to the court on everything, they want both parents to be significantly involved.
And I think this is an important message to continue to stress, because a lot of guys are getting messaging or information from their ex.
Oh, yeah.
And so they believe it, right?
Yeah, your wife
get
will
that a
tell
lot.
you everything she needs you to hear to do what she wants you to do.
Yes.
And that may be not great legal advice.
That's
So
right.
Be careful.
Now, Colin, I love this next question because when I see these pop up, I think it's a product of you stressing the importance of it, but it's in regards to the prenuptial agreements. It says, Chad, I've heard Colin on your show say that his office specializes in prenuptial agreements. Would you have him explain that process and how it works when you decide to get one in place?
Yeah, prenuptial is excellent. I certainly advocate that position. We do a lot more prenuptials. I think people are getting that they understand the importance of it. And prenuptials are really primarily for people who are bringing in assets, or maybe your second marriage where you have a house or you have a retirement plan or you have a business. You have something that of value you're bringing in that you want to protect, maybe for your kids of the first marriage or just because, your new spouse didn't help you create it. And a prenuptial is a great document that you guys, the couple gets to control their future with regard to their asset and debt division, as opposed to 10 years later, the courts, again, will take control and they'll do what they think is equitable. But the process is, the first thing is you got to have a discussion with your soon-to-be spouse, which is always, that's probably the most difficult part of the process of a prenuptial, is saying, hey, I'd like a prenuptial. After that, it's, you got to meet with an attorney, get something put together. The tenets of a successful prenuptial are having enough time so the other party can look at it, review it, take it to their own attorney, full disclosure of all the assets and debts that both parties have, and you put those in the exhibit, and then at least the opportunity to have it reviewed by an attorney, and then enough time prior to getting married, because if you hand this the night before, say, hey, I just want you to sign this prenuptial, it's coercive, and that can undermine the validity of the prenuptial.
And I would imagine that by taking the time to go through this process, you could save yourself a lot of headaches down the road.
Absolutely. It's not great for attorneys down the road because the prenuptial is really not that expensive. You can spend $2,000 to $4,000 doing a prenuptial, which seems like a lot, but I can tell you in the divorce side, when now that your house is on the line, your retirement, spousal support, all the assets and debts are, you're going to spend more than $2,000 to $4,000 resolving that, where a prenuptial can say, this is how we're doing it.
All right, great. Colin Amos is here in studio. By the way, your Washington Huskies have moved up in the college football playoff rankings.
Oh, they finally came in. There it is.
They're number 4, so it's Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Washington at 4, Florida State's the first team out at 5, and I'm assuming Oregon at number 6, right, Burkhardt? There you go.
I was worried about Florida State staying in the top 4, but it was unfortunate with the quarterback going down, but go Dogs.
There you go.
We control
Washington
our destiny.
at number 4. You do. You control your destiny. Just got to take care of business against WSU and beat Oregon a second time.
And I like that Kirk, you got Kirk Herbstreit up there. He's always been a Pac-12 guy. I love the fact that he's been punching this UW and Oregon. They talk more about Oregon on game day than they do about the Dogs. But I'm okay with that. But here we are at number 4.
No, I like his philosophy is very simple. He's like, hey, you guys are worried about the formulas and about resumes. He goes, I just watch the games, and my eyes tell me that Oregon and Washington are better than Florida State, which is great.
Yep.
All right, next question for you is, Colin, how much does a basic divorce usually cost, and is there any advantage to filing first?
Yeah, that's kind of like, how much does a car cost? I get this question. I'm like, how much does a car cost? It really does depend. But a basic divorce, it really is all about the conflict. It's less about the attorneys. It's less about the court. It's all about the individuals. I've had individuals come in, and I learned this a long time ago, 27 years ago, when a guy said, how much is it going to cost? And I said, well, what do you have? And he said, this is what I have. I said, $1,500. This is a while ago. $1,500, no problem. $12,000 later, he got the dog. Now, this wasn't a special breeding up, but I didn't see the importance of the dog. They both did, clearly, because they both litigated. He got it. He said, we won. I go, did we really? But he got the dog. So the cost is going to be a function of that conflict. But to not dance around that issue, most people, on average, where they have a relative amount of conflict, custody and visitation issues, spousal support, property and debt division, spend between $7,000 and $15,000 on their respective attorney, kind of rolling around in the mud till we get a deal.
Yeah.
Now, you can spend less. You don't have to have an attorney. You can download documents yourself and save that. Then you pay your filing fee of $300. So I'm always happy if we have a retainer of, say, $6,500 and we can spend less than that. That is great. That's because people were actually coming to the table to get things resolved.
Well, see, this makes sense. So it's regardless of the, your children or the assets. If you have two people that are agreeable and are working together, it can be very simple. But even if you don't have a ton of assets, or maybe you have one child, if there's constant fighting over every little detail, then that's
right.
going to be more costly.
Yeah, I've had people with millions. They spent, $3,000 getting a divorce, and I had a guy with nothing but the dog spend $12,000. So it just depends on what you guys, what the individuals find that is important to them.
All right, I've seen some version of this question pop up often. Colin, does infidelity have any impact on a divorce in the state of Oregon?
Well, it certainly has an impact on the people that would like to get a divorce.
Yes.
Because not a lot of people have these open marriages, these polyamorous marriages, although I hear that all the time in these, hey, let's open up the marriage, which is always a bad idea.
That sounds like a bad idea.
The divorce rate is probably above 50%
yes.
with just two people. A third person is not going to increase the percentages of success. But as far as the court's concerned, it's a no-fault state, so infidelity, abuse, financial mismanagement. You like the sun, she likes the rain. Court says, we don't want to know. They don't want to be involved. Keep it outside. It's just not brought into the courtroom.
All right, Colin, my husband and I are going to get divorced, and he has moved out of the house. The home is in my name. May I change the locks?
People change the locks all the time, regardless of whether the house is in their name or not, which always cringe. Going back to that original discussion at the top where we talked about just don't go over angry and start pounding on the door. Whether the locks have been changed or not, that's just always a bad idea. But you can change the locks. If that person, they have a right to be in that house, even if their name is not on the title or the deed. If they've been residing there, they have a right to go in there. I've had people, break a side window, get in the house, and you can't break and enter your own residence. I don't recommend this. This is not my legal advice, but it happens. So you can change the locks. The better way to do this when these kind of games are being played on separation, let's just file the divorce. If you can't have boundaries, if you're separating and trying to figure out your marriage, but somebody's coming back in the house and not respecting, the discussions you've had, maybe in counseling, maybe it is time to take that next step. But yeah, you can change the locks, you can change accounts, you can do all sorts of things that may or may not be advisable.
All right, here's another question for you. Colin, is inheritance considered community property? Would you please explain how the court deals with that?
Yeah, an inheritance is not. Community property is a Washington-based term because Washington's a community property state. Oregon is an equitable distribution state. Quite frankly, the application is the same in both states. But both states, inheritance is presumptively separate. It's that individuals. The biggest issue is if you commingle it. So if you have inheritance and you want to maintain its separate character in the future, even if you're not getting a divorce right away, you need to keep it away from all funds. People think just because I put that in a savings account or a checking account in my name that it's separate. But if you put your paycheck in that same account, you're now commingling, you're scrambling eggs, you're making it all together. So you got to be real careful of how you handle the property once you get it. But inheritance in and of itself is separate.
So if you get an inheritance and you keep it in a separate account and never commingle, then it's going to be okay.
Yeah, for the most part. Then we get into, let's say you had an inheritance in an investment account, and 10 years later or 5 years later, there's been appreciation. You haven't managed it. There are some courts that says the appreciation to that separate asset is marital, not the underlying principle that was put in there. So there's all sorts of arguments, but the bottom line is keep it out of. Don't have it touch any other account. Keep it separate from everything else that you do, and you have the best chance of maintaining a separate character if things don't work out in the marriage.
All right. Colin Amos, law offices of Goldberg Jones, Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE. If you're facing a divorce or custody issue and you've got questions, much like the ones that we've discussed today, call 1-800-DIVORCE. Colin will get back to you. He'll answer all of your questions and point you in the right direction. And you probably, how many people do you talk to every week? I mean, it's multiple people, right?
Yeah. So new people, 60 to 70 new calls a week. I answer them all.
You answer
and I
them
get
all.
back to them. Yeah, I
you-
talk to them. And there's a lot of people that just have questions, which I'm glad that they're calling. The whole point of this discussion here is just call me. You don't have to hire us. You don't have to need to go through a divorce or a custody case. I've had people ask all sorts of interesting questions. I'm like, I try to answer, and some I'm like, that I can't answer.
Well, that's why I encourage people to call you, because I know how guys think. You know, they might be kind of stuck on an island. They don't know what to do, and just by calling and asking some
Or
questions,
ask for directions.
Yeah, we don't, right? And then we get lost. But having someone answer some basic questions and pointing them in the right direction, or you pointing them in the right direction, it can take a lot of stress away. So they realize, like, oh, okay, this is not as bad as what I was being told or what I had built up in my mind.
Yeah, so the call relieves a lot, but then these guys come in and women come in, and I meet with them, and I dispel all the myths, and the anxiety just lifts. And they're like, I'm so glad I came in. I'm so glad these are the questions that I had answered, because then they can go and live life, and they can either have better conversations with their wife, they can have more constructive negotiations, and they can kind of move on. So it is good.
All right, the website, goldbergjones-or.com. You can check it out. 1-800-DIVORCE is the number you call to reach Colin if you got any questions. All right, I appreciate your time, buddy. Always great to have you in. Thank you for answering the questions. We'll talk next month. Enjoy a huge football weekend, and the next time we see each other in studio, we will know the result of the Pac-12 title game. So
Some things are going to go down. Some things are going to go
Have
down.
a good time on your trip, too.
I will.
All right, we'll
thank
keep
you.
things rolling. We still have a pair of tickets to give away for the Blazers and Jazz. We will do so. Big thanks to Colin Amos. It's game day. Tip-off with the Blazers and Suns coming up at 6. Curtis Long will have your Trailblazer pregame show at 5 o'clock.
Awesome. That was fun.
It's time for a Blazers Game Day scoreboard report, powered by Columbia Heating and Cooling, raising your expectations of comfort.
All right, quick update from the college football playoff rankings. Washington has moved into the top 4. They're now number 4. Georgia's number 1, Michigan number 2, Ohio State 3, Washington 4. Florida State is the first team out, followed by the Oregon Ducks. That was the exact 6 that we described before the show today, Burkhart. In order, right? No surprises.
Look at us.
And Washington rightfully in now, not because of the injury at quarterback for Florida State, but because of their resume. They've got 4 top 25 wins now, the most of any of those teams that are sitting there in the top 4, so props to them. All right, taking a look at the NBA scoreboard and what's going on around the association. One game in action right now in Orlando. The Magic lead the Raptors 28-20. Game's coming up at 4:30 here, about 5 minutes away from tip-off. Pacers and Hawks in Atlanta. Tyrese Halliburton averaging 23 points and 11 assists per game. Trae Young, 23 points, 11 assists per game. Atlanta 6-6. The Pacers at 7-5. Atlanta's favored by 3.5. 4:30 on TNT. The Cavaliers are in Philadelphia to take on the Sixers. Philly favored by 8.5. The Sixers second in the East at 10-3. Cleveland sits at 7-6. Joel Embiid having a big year so far. 31 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. 6 o'clock down in the Valley. Trailblazers and Suns. Phoenix favored by 13.5. Kevin Durant averaging 31 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. Trailblazers 7 straight losses after their 3-3 start. They're 3-10 on the year. Jeremy Grant averaging 22 points per game. And on TNT, the second half of the doubleheader, the Jazz are in Los Angeles to take on the Lakers. LA favored by 7.5. Lauri Markkanen averaging 24 points and 8 boards per game. LeBron James 26, 8, and 6. Utah's 4-9. LA 8-6. And these are in-season tournament games. And for the Trailblazers, if they have any hopes of extending their tournament play, they will need a win tonight against the Phoenix Suns. And that is your scoreboard report. All right. What do you think about Philadelphia and the start they've gotten off to with Nick Nurse? Burkhart sitting there a half game back of Boston, number 2 in the East. Like I'm fully impressed with what Nurse has done with that group now that they got the mess of James Harden out of there.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to give them some credit because I don't think anyone envisioned this coming, considering it was just, season started and James is still on the team. And there's this just cloud around the team. Like, what's going on? We got to figure this out. You're not going to get a ton of return probably for this guy. What are we going to do? He gets out and boy, howdy, they just click because they got talent there. And now they got a really good coach to pair with it. So surprised? No, but surprised a little bit.
Real quick on the college football playoff rankings, the advantage of Washington winning games. Now when Oregon matches up with them in the Pac-12 title game, you'll be facing a top 4 team. That's good.
Yeah, don't let that one be lost because, and here's the deal too, because they are 4 right now. They're likely to beat Washington State, right, in the same week that Michigan and Ohio State play each other. So they're probably going to go into that Pac-12 title game ranked number 3, and Oregon will probably be right there at 5 or 6. Right. And so Oregon's going to get a chance to beat. That's huge when it comes to who gets left in, who gets left out. Oh, Oregon doesn't have that strength of schedule. Yeah, well, guess what? If they beat a top 15 Oregon State team and then buoy that with a top 3 Washington, that's big time.
It improves the resume. Let's go out to the phones. My man Tony in Boring. Tony, what's up, buddy? Welcome to Game Day.
Hey, thanks for taking the call. Just a little backyard burning. It's that time of year. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's nice outside right now, too. It's probably beautiful up there in Boring tonight.
It is, it's a wonderful evening. I'm sure it's pretty cold tonight, but with the fire going inside as well. Hey, I think that Philadelphia thing, that's your classic addition by subtraction. The sad thing is you got a malcontent, that winds up getting his way. You got an owner who's, got a bunch of money, he's always getting his way, so nobody really wants to beg for a while. But, that's part of the worst part about the NBA. I don't know what's out there on that.
No, I agree. I think that's what it is. It's addition by subtraction. You get rid of James Harden, a guy that didn't want to be there. He was creating, some headlines and controversy, and now he's out. And every guy you've got on board wants to be there and is playing hard for Nick Nurse. And then they've got the MVP to build everything around. So it works really well.
Hey, I'm a little concerned with the whole Scoot Henderson thing. Trailblazers don't like to let us know when their superstars are really hurt. And kind of feeling like this G thing is just another step in procrastination. Am I onto something, or am I just crazy?
No, dude, I think he's okay. I think the bone bruise was just a bone bruise. I mean, from what I heard, even after the injury, when it took place, he was walking around without any assistance or any, massive pain. I think they're just in a position with a young, valuable piece like that to be patient, knowing that, they're not trying to, compete for a championship this year, so they're not going to rush him back into the lineup. So I think they're just being patient with him. I think they're running him down to the G League to get him some practice time to get his conditioning back up, and I expect him back with the team here in the very near future.
All right. Well, hopefully I'll hear about him slipping on the floor in practice at the G League, and then we'll wait another couple of weeks or something like that. Yeah.
That's right. Time to go.
All right. Hey, Chad. What's up?
Happy Thanksgiving, my friend.
You too, Chad. I've got to say happy Thanksgiving if I talk to you. We'll catch you after the holiday.
I look forward to it, man. Big games this weekend. Yeah, go inspect the floor at Childs, Chris, and make sure everything looks good for Scoot.
Well, just so you know,
practicing.
Hey, just so you know, while you were there talking to good friend of the show, Colin, Scoot Henderson has been recalled by the Blazers. So he was sent down to practice one day while the team was away in Phoenix because, you don't get a lot of practice time in the regular season, right?
No.
Yeah, so he was sent down to do that. And, that's the haps there.
Okay, good. So hopefully we'll see him back in action here in the very near future. There you go. 2 hours ago, the Blazers put out the press release. The Trailblazers have assigned guard Scoot Henderson to the Rip City Remix for return to court conditioning. And 33 minutes ago, Scoot Henderson has been recalled by your Portland Trailblazers. That didn't take long. So it was just practice time. You get down there, get a chance to practice, get some conditioning, and then boom, you're back up.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely what it was because people don't realize this. And I know the Godfathers talked about it, and I've talked about it with you, but, man, they do not get a lot of downtime to practice in the regular season, right? Because they're either at Moda, traveling. They have walkthroughs and shoot-arounds, but it's not a full-court practice. So this was a chance to let him go down there and get a modified run without running too much of a risk.
Yeah, and that's why teams, when you get those weird breaks in the schedule, that's why it's nice. Coaches love that time because if there's anything that's ailing the team or issues that are popping up throughout the course of the season, getting some good practice time to go back and work on some of those details can be very valuable. All of those guys, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Ish Wainwright, Robert Williams, and booyah, all out tonight against the Phoenix Suns. All right, so I can't wait until Scoot gets back on the floor. It's going to be fun to watch him play. Now, you and I were talking about this, and these are questions that popped up last night when I was talking to the Trailblazer Booster Club. So with the G League players, you can call players up and send them back as often as you want, but there's a limit on how many games they can play, correct?
Yeah, that number is 50 for an individual player, I believe it is, but your two-way players cannot play more than 90 combined. So if you had, two two-way players going and, say, Skylar hit his 50, that would leave 40 for any of your other two-way guys. So that's why it made sense to give Skylar that full contract, bring him up, and still be allowed to run your other two-way guys around because the more games up, the less you have to actually, give to everybody else.
All right. Well, it's going to be tough tonight in Phoenix. We were talking about the firepower. They just don't have it. Booker and Durant.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, and we saw it firsthand here many a time against Denver, right? Jusuf Nurkic, right? The way he liked to play against Jokic and those Denver Nuggets. I think you might get a little taste of that type of Nurkic tonight against the Blazers, saying, oh, yeah, you didn't think me and Dame could get it done? You didn't like me? Watch this. And he might have a close to a triple-double type night. You never know.
So far this year, Jusuf Nurkic, 13 games, 10 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. Shooting 42% from the floor. That's the Nurk we know.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the exact same guy in Phoenix that he was in Portland. His numbers have dipped a bit, but The guy just can't make shots.
I've been watching some Phoenix fans vent about him going, 42% from the floor for a center in this league. He can't shoot. Well, the thing is, he thinks he can. He extended his game to take 3-pointers and this and that. And that's one thing. I love basketball, right, Chad? I love this game that you and I get to cover. What I hate is like, oh, everyone's shooting threes. Guess I'm going to have to shoot threes. Like Dwight Howard learning how to shoot threes. Like, dude, you're Dwight Howard. You're 7 feet tall. You are an absolute beast for the prime run of your career. Just get down in the paint and beat people up. Know your game. Play to those strengths, man. Not everybody needs to shoot a three.
I agree. I'm with you. We still have a pair of tickets we'll give away when we come back after we give you our keys to the game. So if you want to go check out the Blazers and Jazz, we'll have another pair to give away coming here before the end of game day. Curtis Long will have your Trailblazer pregame show coming up at 5, and the tip-off will be at 6. And then Burkhart and I will be back after the game for fifth quarter. What do you think of DeAndre Ayton so far?
I think he's been good. I think it's tough for him, though, because, again, when you're playing with your point guard as Skylar Mays and Bouye, it's hard to get into a groove because those guys don't know what the groove is yet. These aren't, legit. I mean, Skylar, yes, he's a legit NBA player, but he's like on a fully healthy roster. He's not playing, right? So
it's hard for you to say Bouye and not go booyah.
Yeah, right.
It's hard, isn't it?
Booyah! I think they should take a note from us and play that in the arena, like now entering the game.
Booyah! Or when he scores a bucket. Booyah! I love that sounder because that's with authority. Booyah! Booyah! So I can't take you seriously when you say booyah. It just sounds weird. You're right, though. He was developing a connection with Anthony, and then that was cut off. It looks like Anthony's been busy during his time off, too. So hopefully that's going well.
Wow, wow,
wow.
Jeremy Grant hits the thruple.
Hey, Colin said it. Thruples are probably not the best idea long term.
Probably not.
He's a divorce expert. That's what he said. Probably not the best idea. Divorce rates are nearing 60% with 2 people. Adding more people might create more difficulty. Who would have thought? Oh. All right. I'm out of jokes. All right. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. We'll see if the Blazers can snap the 7-game winning streak in Phoenix tonight. I have my doubts, but that's okay. We're looking for incremental growth. It's the beginning stages of a rebuild, all right? Let's see if the players can go out there and compete and have more energy than what we saw on Sunday night against the Thunder. When we come back, keys to the game, and then we'll give away a pair of tickets for your Portland Trailblazers right here on Game Day. Be sure to go to youtube.com. Go to our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. You can pull up our homepage, click and subscribe, and you'll find the live links for our shows right there. Rip City Mornings with Justin Myers, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, Blazers Game Day and Fifth Quarter with Chad Doing and Chris Burkhart, and then Courtside Mondays with Chris Burkhart, all right there. You can jump inside the studio, watch the live stream, and take part in our YouTube chat. right, a couple of keys tonight for the Trailblazers in Phoenix. Number one, it goes back to what Chauncey Billups said. They've got to play with more attention to detail. That's going to be critical. They've got to play with more effort, and they got to be a more physical team than the Phoenix Suns. I think on top of that, I say it every game, but they really do need to cut down on the turnovers. 19 of them on Sunday against Oklahoma City, which led to 29 points. And then I think from there, if they can start out with more energy and get off to a better start, a lot of times that can promote better execution and maybe allow them to get some easier buckets. But again, they're going to be up against it tonight because they're taking on a team that's got star power. And as I mentioned before, with the injuries and the lack of firepower the Blazers have, it's just tough for them to compete in games where they got to slow down guys like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So attention to detail, more physicality, more energy from the start, and cut down on the turnovers. You cannot turn it over 19 times and give Phoenix a bunch of easy buckets and hope to be competitive in a game like this. And that is your keys to the game. All right, we got another pair of tickets to give away. If you want to see the Blazers and Jazz go head-to-head, we have a pair of tickets to give away right now. So we'll take caller 15, 503-248-0620. Call now, caller 15, 503-248-0620. We'll get a pair of tickets courtesy of 620 Rip City Radio. And your Portland Trailblazers and all your Trailblazer ticket needs, just go to trailblazers.com. And they've got different ticket packs, single game tickets, everything you need. But caller 15 right now will get a pair of tickets for the Blazers and Jazz. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number, 503-248-0620. Chris, we'll get your information, we'll get you the tickets, and you'll be good to go. So the Blazers tonight, as I mentioned, the good news at the top of the show, Malcolm Brogdon has been upgraded to questionable. So his return is nearing. Scoot Henderson was sent down to get some practice time with the remix. He was called back. His return should be nearing, and we're not too far away from getting Ant back on the floor. But that's going to help them just to get some more experienced guys on the floor again, get some better options, and especially with Ant, just getting a guy back on the floor that can knock down shots and be able to score, I think is going to be very helpful. And those are the type of things you're looking for right now. But I really want Scoot out there because I want to see him play. And I understand Tony's concern. Anytime there's an injury with the Blazers, it always seems to be worse than what it's originally thought. But, with Scoot, the good thing is it wasn't a serious injury. They were just cautious with it, and he'll be able to get back on the floor and start getting some run and just getting some more activity. And that's important. You want that. You definitely want that. But the physicality, just take a listen to Chauncey Billups again talking about the lack of physicality against Oklahoma City. And this is something that it's a calling card of his team, what he wants.
No, I don't. I didn't feel that we played with physicality tonight. I think that's why, when I talk about lack of focus and attention to detail, that's one of the things that we wanted to do. I mean, I called my first time out, and I looked at all my guys and said, who played last night? They had an overtime game away, and they're fresher than we are. They're playing with more intention than we are, and that was disappointing. That we don't. You got to jump on teams like that. Let them know this. To win this game, it's going to be really tough. Coming off of overtime, emotional win that they got last night. You knew their confidence would be high, but it's still back-to-back. While we've been sitting here waiting. So I've always felt this way. You can lose a game very early on in the game. And today I thought we lost the game in the first quarter.
Yeah, physicality. Lost in the first quarter. Not too often you hear a coach say that. Also, Billups talking about attention to detail.
I thought our attention to detail was off a little bit, even from the start of the game. They got off to, kind of an early start. I thought the turnovers in the first half really hurt us. He had 10 for 17 points at the half. Those layups, when you got numbers, obviously, you get 3-on-2s, 3-on-1s. Obviously, you're going to get a layup in that, but it's the half-court defense. You're set, and then we just don't communicate on the switches. Or we change coverages, change defenses. Now we're playing our 5 down, and we veer because it's Chet. We end up not veering, and we double the ball. Now they just kind of had us going. Lack of communication, lack of focus a lot of times.
All right, so physicality not there, lack of focus or attention to detail, that's a problem. But he was asked about the effort. Here's what he had to say.
And I haven't sat up here one time at all this year talked about effort for our team. Honestly, I'm not going to start tonight. I didn't think we had a night where we didn't compete. I just thought their shot making really deflated us, man. I mean, I came in at halftime. I thought they made 23s at the half. I felt that the shots were so loud. And then the layups, that they got. I thought it just kind of had us spinning. We was just kind of spinning the whole time. You got to give them credit. They play a very simple game, and it's just very effective. They built their team very nicely with all the shooting, around Shea. And they beat us in every which way that you could in this game.
I guess the good news is tonight, there's a low probability the Suns will shoot 61% on 22 of 36 from downtown. So I am hopeful about that. So that's a good thing. All right, so Blazers and Suns. And I think the Suns, by the way, are frauds. Everyone talked about them before the year about how they were going to win a championship or compete for a championship. I'm not buying it. I mean, I love Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, but I don't like their roster construction. And I think when push comes to shove, I just don't think they can compete with a team like Denver or, heck, even the Warriors for that fact come playoff time. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it. So I'm not buying the Suns. I was wrong on the Nuggets. That team's super legit. It's amazing how you can be wrong sometimes. But the Nuggets are a focused team. I think they're going to be really good. I don't expect Minnesota to continue to lead the West as they do right now at 10-3. I think the Thunder are probably a playoff team. I'm not buying the Lakers because I don't trust them to stay healthy. I think the Western Conference will come down to Golden State and Denver. But Denver, with their experience, and now that they've gotten over the hump and they know what it takes to win a championship, they're going to be tough to stop. So right now, 2 teams primarily in the West, 3 teams between Boston, Philly, and Milwaukee in the East. But it's early, and a lot can change. Injuries can happen, which can change the future of certain teams. So, we'll wait and see how it plays out. And Portland right now, right there with Memphis and San Antonio at the bottom of the Western Conference. San Antonio at 3-11. They've lost 9 straight. The Blazers at 3-10 have lost 7 straight. So there you go. Oh, well. There are individuals, though, with the Blazers I'm enjoying watching. Tamani Kamara is fun to watch. Skylar Mays, I give him full credit for stepping in as the third point guard and playing as well as he has. Jabari Walker's energy and effort coming off the bench. And DeAndre Ayton, I'm a fan of. I think he's played well so far. He'll get better as time goes on. They get a better feel for him and, what he does best and getting him to his spots. And then also getting a chance, hopefully, to get an extended stretch where he can be on the floor with Anthony Simons in the pick and roll. That's going to help him. And he pointed this out, a couple of nights ago that, if he's on the floor with Ant and the defense has to pay attention to him and respect him, that's going to create opportunities for him in the pick and roll. And then he can be even more effective. But I like his game so far. He's been active defensively. I like the energy that he brings to practice from the guys, from coach, and the rest of the guys. He chirps a lot, too. Communicates, which is good. All right, that will do it for us. Big thanks to you for listening and joining us on YouTube. Chris and I will be back after the game for 5th quarter on 620 Rip City Radio and YouTube. And my man Curtis Long, the principal, has got your Trailblazer pregame show coming up next. And then tip-off at 6 with Travis Demers and Michael Holton on the call. And don't forget, tomorrow, second of a back-to-back, Utah will be in town. It's going to be a home game on the night before Thanksgiving. So enjoy your evening. Enjoy the game. We'll talk afterwards on the 5th.